Hello, everyone. This is Professor Reena Randir. Today, we will study food safety for food security. These two important principles go hand in hand. The main learning objectives is to understand the basic principles of food safety, to identify common food safety hazards and learn how to prevent them, to understand the relatedness of food safety and food security. We'll also briefly study the food safety management tool, ACCP. We'll also understand some government regulations and bodies that are involved in food safety. What is food safety? It refers to all the measures that is taken to make sure the food supply and the food that you eat is safe for consumption. It is safe and it is free from any kind of contamination. This will include proper handling of food, storing of food, preparing of food, and distribution. I like this quote: if it's not safe, then it is not food. On the other hand, food security is a basic human need for survival. So food security is referring to the availability and accessibility of food. So here in the Sustainable Development Goals set forth by United Nations in 2015, it's top on the list. Number 2, zero hunger. The Food and Agriculture Organization describes it as having 4 basic pillars: food availability, accessibility, utilization, and stability. And some great examples that we are aware of is food banks, farmers markets, community gardens. Here is a interesting statistic. It's also very sad too. The World Health Organization, according to the World Health Organization, there's around 600 million cases of foodborne illnesses and 420,000 deaths globally. This is alarming, and it affects a third of them are children. And this is very preventable. So the burden of foodborne diseases is huge. How does our food become unsafe? So the food contamination can happen at any step in the food production chain. The contaminants can enter the food supply from water, the fertilizers that we use, the soil, the air, the equipment. So it can happen at the production stage, the processing or the distribution or retailers, or it can happen at home. Unhygienic handling practices. So food safety is very important. It requires managing risk from the farm to the table. This is, again, it's unbelievable that we are in the 21st century and hunger and poverty and famine is still a huge topic of discussion. There's this startling connection between the word hunger map. Here is the Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations hunger map. And it's very similar to the food insecurity map that they have published. The countries with the highest food security, mainly driven by poverty and famine and conflict and civil unrest and drought and climate change, they are the ones who are also experiencing hunger. This statistics, makes everyone sad. And now food safety and security concerns have been heightened by the coronavirus pandemic and the war in Ukraine. This risk an attack on the global supply chains. Here is the consumer uh, data that shows 70% of the people believe that our global food supply chain will be affected. And here, trust leadership is the key here that should drive this change. People worry about climate change. People are worrying about toxic environmental factors entering the food supply, pollution. We worry more about poverty and access to healthy food for optimal health. And this map just shows how complicated the food system is. And there is this urgent need to drive improvements in the efficiency and efficacy and sustainability of the food system. With the global population expected to reach 10 billion by 2050, we need to make 70% more food. And this challenge is complicated by the complexity of the food systems, the environmental constraints, the aging population, and changes in consumption patterns. What are the different types of food contaminants? What are some of the things that can be present in food that can affect our health? It can be physical contaminants, like pieces of metal or glass or hair, band-aid, nail clippings. It can be harmful chemicals that come from cleaning agents or pesticides and herbicides. Or it can be biological, like bacteria and virus, parasites and mold that can populate our food. And also allergenic substances that can cause an allergic reaction. This is mainly because of cross-contamination and improper handling of food. And the group that is most prone to foodborne illness would be children and aging adults and people with weakened immune system like pregnant women. Some of the symptoms of food contamination that you are probably aware of and I am aware of and experienced would be stomach pain, diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, chills, muscle cramps, and that can even lead to death. Here's more examples of chemical contamination in food that you can go over, like aluminum, arsenic, lead poisoning, nitrates in the food. Sometimes even adulteration in our food is common. Adulteration to bulk up the food and to improve profits at the cost of the consumer's health. And food poisoning, they can come from bacteria, virus, fungi, listeria in milk and unwashed produce, fecal contamination in our meat, salmonella by undercooking, Campylobacter also by unhygienic kitchen practices, Staphylococcus, Clostridium causing botulism. Here's more examples of a huge list of parasites, protozoans like Toxoplasma, cestodes, like Taenia, trematodes, and nematodes. All of them can enter our food supply. Why do these pathogens like food? That is the ideal medium for them to grow. This slide is talking about cross-contamination, how bacteria and other contaminants can transfer from one surface to the other. That is why food has to be washed thoroughly. You don't store chemicals in food next to each other. The cooked food should be separated from raw foods. Foods should be covered. They should be kept off ground. We should use different cutting tools and cutting boards for meat and vegetables. And also there is a wise way to store foods in the refrigerator with vegetables on top and meat in the bottom, cooked foods on top. What are the conditions for microbes to grow? Here's an acronym, FAT TOM. They need delicious food or any food. It's fair game. Bacteria likes slightly, mostly neutral, lightly acidic. They need time to grow. They need a nice warm place to grow. They need oxygen and moisture. So here it is expanded. Microbes need a constant source of nutrients like protein and carbs. The acidity around 6.6 to 7.5. And here is the ideal temperature for them to grow, 40 to 140 degree Fahrenheit. So this is why it's called as, this is the danger zone. So you have to keep food less than this temperature or more than that temperature range. They need oxygen, they need moisture. So now that you know what microbes microbes need for survival, we can not provide it, thereby deterring their growth. Here is some safety guidelines to keep our food safe. Cleanliness and hygiene, of course, is top priority. To have a clutter-free kitchen at home. Don't cross-contaminate. Cook foods to the right temperature. Don't leave them sitting outside on the countertop. Refrigerate as soon as you can. And here's the cooking temperature for different meat products. For example, poultry is 165 degree Fahrenheit in internal temperature. I think it's very similar for your Thanksgiving turkey also. And the other temperatures are listed here. And again, a mention of the danger zone. So it is very important that we keep our food refrigerated, which is less than 4 degrees centigrade. Or it should be hot and cooked right through 60 degrees centigrade. And of course, we have to eat food before the expiry date that's listed on the cans. How does climate change affect our food system and food security? They affect it because climate change is increasing the risk of foodborne diseases with increasing temperatures and floods and cyclones and tsunamis. It has an impact on the pathogens and parasite, and also the chemical contaminants by changing its occurrence, its distribution, and its virulence. How is a food-borne outbreak monitored? There are 3 types of data that is used to study the outbreaks that we've seen on TV. Well, the first one is called epidemiology. Here, this is where they study patterns of how people get sick. And they are like food detectives. They will interview people and they will map out clusters of sickness that were reported. And then they will try and trace back the exact point in the food production cycle where the contaminant entered the food supply. They would do a lot of testing in labs. And then when they are sure about it, they will go on TV to announce to the public, to caution them. And then this is when we see the food recalls or restaurants closed until further inspection says they are safe. And this whole process is constantly improving. This phenomena of doing detective work as to see when the food got contaminated is called food traceability. So here you track the movement of food products along the entire food supply chain from production to consumption. And you check off the list, like you would do scientific analysis to find the source of food contamination. And also double check to see if they are keeping up with the regulatory requirements. There are several food safety surveillance agencies that we have, especially in developed countries like USA, that is play a huge role in protecting our health. It's the Food Safety and Inspection Services, FSIS. They are part of USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. They are responsible for ensuring safety and proper labeling of meat and poultry and egg products, especially the expiry dates. Food and Drug Administration, Environmental Protection Agency, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, United States Department of Homeland Security, Food and Nutrition Services. So these are some of the important agencies that make sure our food system is safe. Hazard analysis and critical control point analysis. This is referring to a very protective and proactive food safety and management system that will identify and control any kind of contamination, biological, chemical, or physical contamination, to prevent a problem before it happens. There are 7 main steps in this safety management process. One is to conduct hazard analysis. So this involves identifying the potential contamination that can happen in any stage. Then they will identify the critical control point. So this critical control point is the point in food production where control measures can be applied to prevent or to eliminate and to keep the hazard level to an acceptable level. The third would be to establish critical limits. This involves setting limits for each critical point that must be met to ensure safety. Then, of course, it leads into implementing monitoring procedures. So you're putting in place procedures to monitor every critical point. And then if it is broken, you have to establish corrective actions and followed by verification procedures and meticulous record keeping. So you can see inspectors inspecting food at every step of the food production process. So in summary, food safety is critical for achieving food security, which is referring to the availability, access, utilization of safe and nutritious food for all of humanity. It is top on the Sustainable Development Goals. Unsafe foods contaminated by either physical, chemical contaminants can cause disease and even death. And this is leading to a lot of economic loss the world over. Food safety risks can happen at any step in the food production, from the farm to the table. That is why food safety measures like good agricultural practices, proper handling of food, even good training of all food handlers in restaurants and food service industry, storage, effective food regulations and monitoring is of vital importance. And this can be made possible only with powerful collaborations between governments, food industries, consumers, to make sure the availability of safe food is met for every human being. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope that was useful for you.